These poles behind me represent the laws of the Gitxsan. The poles show the oral histories that are owned by each of the house groups and the different clans of the Gitxsan. These ones that you can see are from my community, Kidziukla, and some of them are from Gitniau. But it's very important for people to appreciate that the Delgamuukw case and the Gistewe case were putting forward the Gitxsan laws. And what we were saying to the court was that they had to recognize the laws of the Gitxsan. The oral histories, the legal traditions explain all those laws clearly to people.
See the eagle fly in the blue sky so high, telling you you've got to be strong. See the red sun rise in the morning singing, follow me, you'll never go wrong, never go wrong. If you follow me, never go wrong. If your eyes can see the wheel of the land, with bear and bird and tree, and them you and me. See the little fox in the morning.
How does it feel to run again? It feels good to run with you again. 25 years later, after that marvelous effort that we made and had all that support from Project North, and just, it was just incredible. And Jim and Rena and their valuable help with the van, it was just remarkable. So.
Yep, that was fun.
Yeah. Do you feel like we made a difference?
Well, the run for justice is on its way. We have Wally and Kathy from the Gitskan Wet'suwet'en people starting off this morning. They're warming up with a walk. And a friendly village dog keeping them company.
It's worth the effort, especially when we're, since I was running marathons anyway, then they asked me to do it, and then more and more I figured out what it was about, the politics and raising money for their court case and raising awareness about it. That's mainly the main thing, I think. So it was good, a good effort.
I had been in Project North as a member for about 12 years in '87, and that was at a time when there were several different court cases coming down with regards to Native people, First Nations, and we heard about the Gitxsan Wet'suwet'en particularly because their court case, their court challenge to the provincial government had started in 1984, and it was going nowhere.
Well, Project North, I belong to the Anglican Church, and it became very aware that First Nations people were excluded for so many things. There was a need for the churches to work together to get into this issue. And my husband and my two daughters and I had been in the Northwest Territories for 10 years. And certainly I learned that it was an us and them situation, and there were government events and so on, and the Native people were not included in most of that.
Project North monthly meeting in August of '87, I suggested the idea of a run from the tribal territory up and around the Hazleton area down to Vancouver, the court case where the Gitxsan Wet'suwet'en were having to come all that way because the provincial government changed the venue from Smithers to Vancouver. So this made a lot of hardship on Gitxsan Wet'suwet'en elders and chiefs, etc.
Jane Middleton, to whom I give a lot of credit, was chair at that time, and it was quite a heavy load. There's a lot to do, a lot to learn, and so on, and we were she phoned one day and said, "Mavis, are you free this afternoon? Because Jack Thornburgh has this crazy idea that he'd like to do a run from northern BC down to Victoria." And she said, "Of all the dumb things, but you know, we have to listen to him and so on, and I want to get a few people together." So I said, "No, I'd love to come." I thought it was a great idea. So we met that afternoon and talked about it. By the end of it, Jane was all for it. It was exciting and imaginative, and Jack had that quiet demeanor that was so attractive.
Project North always kept in pretty close contact with the various chiefs and elders in the various First Nations around, especially with when we heard about the Gitxsan Wet'suwet'en. There came to be quite a strong relationship between our Project North, Victoria, and especially Chief Don Ryan.
In terms of the Run for Justice, we spent considerable amount of time dealing with different groups, such as the church groups, when we were doing the court case. And we decided that we would spend a bit of time to try to help people understand what we were trying to do with the court case, and then to take a look at what type of activities that we could use to bring this to the public eye. And the Run for Justice was part of that, and working with Project North and the subsequent organizations after Project North. But for the purposes of the run, we spent considerable time with the Project North, which is made up of all kinds of different churches from around the country. And so the Run for Justice was tied in to the court case when the trial was moved from our territory in the north to come to Vancouver. And what we were concerned about was that we wouldn't get the justice that we were seeking if the trial was removed or moved from our territory.
I approached Steve, and as I recall it, he almost immediately thought it was a good idea, and before long he accepted the idea of being one of the principal runners along with myself, because I had done a lot of distance running as well. So that was that really got us off the ground. And the fourth member of the team, Jim Williams, was the van driver mostly and videographer. He did a fair bit of the video, but also a good bit of it was done by Rena Dulé, who was also a Tsaut member and a good friend of Steve and his sister Mavis Underwood. So we found out that Rena had a gift for sort of physiotherapy, massage therapy, and on the night, I think it was on the night of the fundraising dinner in early September of 1988, just less than a month before the run, Rena Dulé was kind enough to offer her services to come along with us in the RV to be the massage therapist, physiotherapist, and it turned out she also had a gift for driving and for videography as well. So,
okay, 25 years ago, my mom and I were reading maybe it was a notice in the newspaper, and it advertised a native man that was going to sing and play guitar, and I thought it would be really good entertainment. So we went, and it was at Mavis Gilly's church in Victoria. So I didn't realize until we got there that it was a fundraiser for the Run for Justice, and I'd never heard about the Run for Justice, didn't know what it was. And when I looked at the head table, I saw Steve, my cousin, and I saw Jack Thornburgh, who I'd met earlier, and so kind of read their brochure and got a little information about it. And then in their brochure, it said that they were still looking for a massage therapist.
A fellow named Alec Jardine, who was also part of the Project North, he and I did a road test about 2 weeks before the run, and basically he and I went up there, stayed at motels along the way and stuff, and then on the way down we interviewed we called and made contact with all the bands along the route and the community centers along the route, the people that were going to billet us, etc., so that we could suss out exactly where to stop, how long between towns, communities, bands, reserves, etc.
At the time, I really didn't know much about Project North, and then learned more as I got involved with the run. I knew that the Gitxsan people First Nations had a court case about lands claims, and that Project North was given a talking stick to be able to speak to people, about the court case and about, the struggles that they had, and that the run was going to be spreading information, being able to give out information to people at churches and on reserves and all the different places we stopped along the run. So Jack was mostly the speaker. Jim Williams was our main driver for the motorhome, and Steve was the other runner. So it was really nice to have a native and non-native runner. So the two guys ran the whole distance from Hazelton and down to Victoria. And so Steve and I were the quiet, shy ones. So we were there, but we didn't do very much speaking.
So it ended up being that Steve and I were the principal runners. But as Mavis alluded to, we had a lot of people come out from the bands and even from churches and so on that would join us for the final 2 kilometers into town or something of that sort, or into a band office. So it worked quite well that way. I think each of us managed about 800 or 900 kilometers on our own. I mean, separately. Plus, so we were running part-time together and part-time for a total of 1,320 kilometers from. It wasn't quite from the Yukon border, as Mavis alluded to. It was Hazleton where it started. Steve and I picked up the run at Smithers. It was a ceremonial group of elders and a wonderful woman, Kathy, I forget her last name, Holland I think it was, who ran from, 4 or 5 in 2 teams, ran from Hazelton, starting off at dawn with the van and us in the van. And they led off carrying eagle feathers and ran to Morristown. Then 4 others came to relieve them and ran to Smithers, and that's where our first night of billeting after the billeting in Hazleton happened. We got a fabulous welcome at Hazleton from the Gitxsan Wet'suwet'en tribal elders and chiefs.
The Gitxsan Wet'suwet'en people were very happy to have us be able to support them in their court case, to be able to let people know what it was about. When we got there, they were very welcoming, very supportive, and they had some of their people run with us that first day, and we just felt really good about the whole run.
The team got up to Hazleton the night of the 28th of September, and were met with beautiful food and speeches and ceremony from the Gitxsan Wet'suwet'en people in Hazleton, and we billeted with them in Hazleton. And then the next morning we started off bright and early for the first leg of the run, but Steve and I didn't do that leg. That was done ceremonially by the Gitxsan Wet'suwet'en runners, who started off, 4 of them, including an elder named Waldy Danes. Started off, he was 68, and he started off towards Morristown, which is halfway between Hazelton and Smithers. And then another team came in at Morristown, including a lot of school kids, And so we had about 8 or 9 Gitxsan Wet'suwet'en representatives running that first leg, and they just they were so passionate about the whole idea of the land claims and the need for support from any source, including Project North. So we felt honored and privileged to be running for them, and we found out somewhere along the way, I think, that Ron Sebastian, who's a Gitxsan Wet'suwet'en carver, was carving this beautiful 6-foot-tall talking stick, which is almost like a totem. It has carved figures like a totem does, and beautiful sort of mahogany-colored wood. And he was carving that as a gift for Project North for their help with in support of the run for justice and the court challenge.
So one of the things that the Gitxsan did was to commission one of the artists from our community to carve a talking stick. And a talking stick is an important symbol. It's part of the poles that you see behind me. The talking stick is directly related to the authority that the house group has and the chiefs who are responsible for the house. So what we did was to do a talking stick, and we presented it to the people from Project North, and we asked them to represent us. The talking stick gave them the right to stand and to talk on our behalf in other parts of the country. And the work that was done with the people here in Victoria, including the community with Chilliwack, was a remarkable effort on our part to bring other First Nations into what we were trying to do. So the run goes from Hazelton to Victoria, and we wanted all of the people who were part of that run to be able to speak on our behalf as they went through the province with the run.
The run was hard. It was a struggle. And just by the way they ran, I felt like a little mommy hen trying to get them out the door of the motor home. Do we have the right shoes on? Do we have our reflective vest on? And the one time Jack went and stepped out of the motor home, he kind of twisted his ankle. And so, they both, Steve and Jack, they didn't want to quit, and so I'm a crier in our tradition, so here I go. When they couldn't run, they walked, and when they couldn't walk, they limped. And Jim and I saw that, so we know what a struggle it was. It wasn't easy, and it was hard. Jim and I had the easy job driving, and trying to take pictures. But I guess I want people to know that they really did something amazing for justice. I mean, the title is really aptly named, Run for Justice. And that's what they were doing. And so, to me, I guess, and a few people too, they see the run as a struggle, a struggle for justice. And when we went to the Parliament steps, the run ended. So it started at Hazelton and ended on the Parliament steps in Victoria. So the run for justice didn't end at the Parliament steps, every day after. There's still a struggle for Native people.
Well, the run was certainly the hardest thing I've ever done. I think Steve feels the same way. It was essentially a marathon a day by each of us. And of course, sometimes we would be running, sometimes brisk walking, whatever it took to be able to cover anywhere from 40 to 75 kilometers in a single day. We would run 3 days and have the fourth day as a rest day. So in the 32 days, we had about 26 days on the road, and every fourth day was a rest day. The fourth day was often a good day for appearances at on radio stations or local with local communities. We had a lot of people, a lot of young runners join us at different parts of the run for anything from a kilometer up to multiple kilometers, 20 kilometers even. Along with elders, of course, as well, who would come in for a while. But the young people, the attitude that I remember best, and Steve would be able to verify this, I think, that very aware of what we were doing in the sense of raising awareness all along for First Nations issues. We got word that people were taking notice, especially chiefs and elders from different bands along the way, ones that we didn't have a chance to go through. So the word was coming back to us slowly but surely that people were aware of it and aware of the run and the purposes of the run, especially the consciousness raising and awareness raising purpose of the run. Some people had not heard of the Gitxsan Wet'suwet'en court case, but at least they knew that there was something of very great importance that we were supporting and endorsing by this run.
The Indigenous people in the province of British Columbia have been involved in a very, very long struggle to seek a just resolution of the land question in BC. The struggle goes back to the point of contact, and British Columbia, for instance, has had a very pronounced and ongoing sense of an adversarial approach to reconciliation with Indigenous peoples vis-a-vis our Indigenous land rights, which are commonly referred to as Aboriginal title, and of course the notions of Crown title.
The position of the provincial government in the late 1980s was basically what it had been for over a century, and that is that there was no such thing as Aboriginal title, so there was nothing to negotiate with First Nations. And that really left First Nations with two alternatives: some form of direct action on the issue or going to court. And actually the Saanich people were involved in that period around 1988 in two very significant initiatives. One was the Sanderson Bay Marina case, which was the first time a Douglas Treaty had been used to stop resource development. And the other, of course, was the Run for Justice, where Saanich people and their non-Aboriginal neighbors basically came to support the cause of the Gitxsan Wet'suwet'en, who had finally gone to court. And they had gone to court because although a federal treaty process had begun in the 1970s, the Gitxsan were so far down on the list to negotiate that it would be 100 years before they'd get to the table. And getting to the table was academic anyway because the province wouldn't participate. And the Run for Justice really brought public attention to the issue of Aboriginal title in the province, to the position of the provincial government that was really blockading, if you like, progress on that issue, and to the determination of many First Nations people to have this issue dealt with properly, as many of their leaders had been demanding for over a century.
The run was in support of the Gitxsan and Wet'suwet'en and the Delgamuukw case. And Delgamuukw is the very first Aboriginal law case that I learned in my first year of law school. And all the other cases that flow out of it, all of the other negotiations and all the impact that case and the run had, it still very much has an impact today.
While we're doing the court case, we spent considerable amount of effort on doing direct action on the territory. The work that was done was to connect people back to the land and to get people active in protecting what was left on the territory. So the direct action was another process that we used that ran parallel to the work that we were doing inside the legal environment.
I don't know that much had happened before in Native, non-Native relationships where someone was doing something brave and different, like the run. But certainly it brought a lot of attention to the issue of Native rights and what people were willing to do to get people to listen in and participate, whether they agreed or not.
People's taking direct action to defend their interests and rights. And certainly the Run for Justice is a prime example of the commitment that our people have to ensuring that there's a respect and a recognition for rights that at this moment in our history are reflected in the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, which was embraced by the vast majority of countries in the world. Our rights are enshrined in the Constitution in this country and have been the subject of innumerable Supreme Court victories. There's little question that there's been a cumulative effect of all of the good work, the dedication and devotion of many of our elders, our spiritual leaders, our political leaders, leaders such as George Manuel, Philip Paul, back in the day, so to speak, that were very instrumental in keeping our spirit alive and being loud and proud as Indigenous peoples.
I do have a belief that the Run for Justice did start something important. In a sense, as I mentioned, we were one small cog in this whole historical process, but I think we maybe encouraged people to, Native and non-Native, to take these issues seriously and to recognize the continuing inequality in the treatment by the federal government of First Nations reserves. And I like to think that we were a bit of a predecessor to the Idle No More movement, that we might have had some impact on the statements made at Oka to try to make municipal, provincial, and federal governments realize that there are people in their midst who are being treated in an unequal way. And of course, we've seen that with the water situation in various bands recently, which just give proof to the fact that the separate and unequal treatment still happens.
So even though the run is over, and even though it's been 25 years, the reasons and purpose for the run are still going on. There still is a struggle, and our people still are on the line trying to get the information out. And so it may not be Jack and Steve running, but it's other people running and other people trying to make that connection between Native and non-Native. And when there's more understanding, then there will be less fear and less animosity towards us. Even after all these years, there's still that separation, and there should not be.
Groups of dedicated individuals such as the Run for Justice and Project North, individuals that had that sense of social consciousness that knows at the end of the day as human beings we have to do the right thing, no matter how challenging and how difficult. It's a duty we owe to our children and our grandchildren's grandchildren, and that's what we were put here for.
So Jack and Steve and Rena did a remarkable job. The commitment that they had to go from our community and to take the run to Victoria was an amazing feat, and I'm really happy to see that we're doing something to commemorate that effort that they did 25 years ago.
Thank you for being part of an important movement. We're here in a peaceful way. We're here to bring awareness to the issues that have been quiet for too long. Our children deserve the best of a future that we can leave them. And that's all we're trying to do. Our ancestors are crying with us. They're praying with us. And they're guiding us in our every step. We ask only for equality. We ask only for reciprocity. We ask only for respect. Dear people, we are the first people of this land, and we deserve a say in our future. Today is the beginning. Today is only the beginning. We can't give up. People, we have to carry on. We have to keep singing. We have to keep praying. And if we have to keep marching, we